Hey guys, today I want to talk a little bit about clear, loving communication and how important it is in our lives. It's important to be clear when communicating with ourselves and clear when communicating with others, whether you're in a relationship or not, just out in the world. It's super important to speak from our heart, to speak our truth, so people know what's going on. No one has to assume, no one has to guess. People know that they're loved, they know that they're heard. And we can all have a little more respect for each other, a little more kindness. So this was brought to my attention mostly by something that happened this weekend with my 10-year-old daughter and her friends. So there's just been this, I guess she's having a little bit of an issue with some of the kids at school who have been kind of giving her the silent treatment, ignoring her, running away from her when she comes over to play, that kind of thing. And you can say this is just what kids do, it's the games kids play, and yes, kids do this, but more importantly, why do kids do this? Why do they do this? Because my daughter was very confused. We've always raised her to speak your mind, you speak your truth. I didn't raise her to be polite in the sense that you don't speak your truth so you don't hurt others' feelings. Of course, you don't be mean, and of course, there's opinions you can have that don't need to be said because they could be hurtful to somebody, and they're just opinions. But then there's also this deeper communication, this communication from heart to heart. What are we really saying? What really needs to be heard? How do we need to be heard? What do we need to say to others? So for her, when other kids, and they're all 10 years old when other kids do this and they don't have clear communication of what they're wanting or what they're desiring, she gets very confused. I think her feelings might get hurt a little bit, but she's super strong with who she is, and so she doesn't let it show, and she just rather would come to me and just be like, Mom, can you explain to me what's going on? Why are they doing this? And then she tries to go talk to them, and they just run off more. They won't have a conversation with what's going on. So she brought this to me, and of course, I talked to her about how most people are not taught how to clearly communicate. As children in our families, a lot of us did not learn how to talk about our feelings. We didn't learn to speak up for what we wanted, because when we did, usually as toddlers, we were put down. We were stopped immediately. We were told to knock it off. We were told it wasn't as important. We felt like we didn't really matter, and our opinions didn't matter. Our truth didn't matter. Now, I didn't raise my kids this way, so when they see other kids doing this, they get very confused as to why they can't just honestly tell them why they're running away or why they're giving her the silent treatment. She doesn't play those games very often. I can't say she never does because I'm not with her all day. But as far as I can tell, observing her play with her friends, she's really, really very honest. So these particular girls that this was going on with in the group, I actually had the chance to talk to them without my daughter there, because I saw them in the neighborhood and they were all playing together. And I asked them, I wanted to engage a conversation, and I was hoping maybe they would with me. I've known a lot of them since they were little, and we've grown up together, our kids have grown up together, and a lot of them do come to me for advice every so often. So I asked these group of girls, 10 and 11-year-old girls, hey, can you guys talk to me about what's going on? I am curious if we can have an honest conversation, heart to heart, as openly as we can. They know I'm not very threatening. And if we can talk about what this silent treatment is and why you're running away. And of course, I never feel the need to defend my daughter. Even if somebody's making fun of her or bullying her, I really don't ever have to jump in and defend her. That's something she gets to develop on her own, how she wants to respond and learn how to navigate with people that are like that. Because they're going to be like that in the world. Not everyone's going to like her, right? These girls were very open and they were very honest with me. And it was great to have such a communication. And one of them said that, it was just a joke. And so we talked a little bit about jokes and how, jokes that hurt your friends, especially when you do it over and over, may not be something that's very kind. And, she may decide she doesn't want to be friends with them if they continue to treat her that way. We talked about that. But then one of the girls got really deep about it. And she's like, you know what? It wasn't a joke. We just didn't feel like playing with her all the time. We just want to play by ourselves once in a while, and she comes around all the time to play. Now, my daughter's very social. She's not like a needy social, but she loves people. So if she sees groups of people playing, even if she does not know them, like at the park or somewhere else, she will always go up and ask, hey guys, do you want to play? Do you want to hang out? Do you want to do this? That's just her personality, and she just never gives up because she just loves people. So I told them, I was like, guys, you know what? It's perfectly fine for you not to want to play with my daughter. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I was like, she would appreciate if you actually just told her that, because she is okay with that. Because I've raised her that way. I've raised her that if she doesn't want to play with somebody, and if she's playing with someone else and another person wants to join and they truly don't feel like playing with the other person, they can lovingly speak to them and tell them, right now, we really would love to play by ourselves, but we'll let you know when we're ready to play with you, or something like that, whatever comes to their mind. You know, I'm teaching her how to truly communicate openly so other kids aren't left feeling hurt or left out, wondering what's wrong with them. You know, it's a very honest thing, and it's okay to not want to play with everybody or include everybody. And I know this is something very, very hard in our society. We learn as kids, you have to include everybody. And even now in today's age, I keep hearing the word bullying coming around from leaving people out. And I understand that there is a mean type of really excluding people for reasons that probably, you know, aren't very kind. But in the true essence of wanting to just be by yourself or wanting to play with a friend and have an interaction without other people around, that really is okay. And when you communicate that from your heart, that's authentic. That's clear, loving communication. And that's what this world needs. We don't need everyone to include everyone in everything. We don't have to share everything that we have with everybody who comes by. That's great if you want to, but if you don't want to, that is okay. So I told these girls, it's okay. Just be honest with her. She really will be okay with it. And if she feels a little bit hurt, that's okay too. Because then, you know, my daughter can really sit with that and decide what that means for her and discover more about herself. You know, she's really good at doing that because I've obviously supported that. I've always supported the inner journey and deciding what emotions mean to you and if you even want to put meaning on them, or if you want to just go play by yourself and do something else. So I told these girls that, and they came back to me. All of them had the same response. We can't tell her that because our parents taught us that we have to be nice and we can't be mean or say something that hurts their feelings. You know, we have to be polite. So they're like, well, the only option is to run away from her and give her the silent treatment and go hide from her, because if we tell her we just don't want to play with her right now, they're still her friends, they still want to play with her, just not right that moment, then that would be going against what their parents taught them of they're not kind, they're hurting people's feelings, you know, all those things that we as adults still carry, and we're still not clear in our communication. And so I talked about them with that, and you know, I certainly don't want anybody to go against what their parents are teaching them, but we talked a little bit deeper about what does that really mean? And how does that really feel to you? Like if someone was running away from you or giving you the silent treatment, how does that make you feel? You know, would it make you feel good? Would it make you feel very confused? It actually probably is a little more hurtful to do that than it is to just come out and say, right now, we really just want to play by ourselves. And we'll come and get you when we're ready to play with you. You know, and if the other person feels hurt, dare I say this, it's actually okay. And I wanted to let them know that they cannot live their lives truthfully if they're constantly trying to protect other people from being hurt, because you can never do that. You can never do that. Even if you know, when you speak your truth, other people might feel hurt. When you don't speak your truth, other people will feel hurt. It doesn't matter if it's someone who's close to you, a loved one, you know, a close partner, any kind of relationship, a best friend. You can't ever count on that person to never hurt you, because truly you can only feel hurt if you are already carrying something within you that has that vibration that's being triggered. And you always have the opportunity to look at it, to sit with it, and to feel through it. And, you know, this is pretty big for, you know, 10-year-old girls that have not been raised with me and in my household where we do speak truth, where we are very honest with our communication. I mean, I'm very honest with how I communicate with my kids, even when it goes against what a lot of, I hear what a lot of other parents, you know, would tell me. They would tell me never to tell that to my kids, never be truthful about how you feel about, you know, certain things, because you don't want to upset your kids. You don't want them to think something's wrong, or you don't want whatever it is they're afraid of. But if you don't truthfully tell them how you're feeling, they're not learning how to communicate how they're feeling. You know, if you don't sit and listen to them and really honor and respect and hear them, even if you don't agree with what your kids are saying, if you don't sit and hear them, then they're going to feel like what they have to say and feel doesn't matter. And eventually, by the time they're 10, they're going to have given up, and they're going to resort to some of these tactics that we call, like mean girl stuff. And kids will just be kids, or boys will be boys, is another big one. We had that whole thing with my son talking about why other boys do certain things. It makes no sense to him. Why they can't just tell him. Why can't they just speak honestly? Why can't they just play with kindness and awareness? That's really hard for my son, who's a very sensitive boy. He's 12 now, but he's starting to work through that, and he's starting to understand how some people are and why they are the way they are. Because it starts when you're young. It starts from your examples. Even at school, you can't speak up and speak your truth because you'll get in trouble by your teacher. Kids learn this very, very young. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. We're changing that now. I'm helping to change that. My kids are amazing teachers. This is their first year in a public school here in our neighborhood, and they are really learning what it means to not be able to speak your truth and live your truth. And there's nothing wrong with the school. The school is great. It's a really nice school, and they've got a lot of opportunities, but there's just, our cultural, the way the system is set up, the way we have traditional education set up, it does not support you in living who you are, living your truth, speaking your truth, following your intuition. It does none of that. So my kids are quite shocked to go into this system, but they also see how they can learn from it. And they're also noticing how they can help other kids too, just by shining their light there, just by, being present and really listening to others and teaching them how to speak their mind when they can, when it's safe. As kids, of course, you have to live with the adults around you. So it may not be safe until you're older, but you get these seeds planted in your head. So I wanted to bring this here too, because there's so many adults, including myself. Oh my gosh, I've had a really hard time with this, because that was always one of my biggest fears growing up, was that I would upset other people if I spoke my truth. And so I wanted to use this example to kind of show how this starts, but then the importance of being able to speak your truth. Because it's one thing to, not, what's that saying? Don't say something if you don't have something kind to say, don't say anything at all, or whatever it is. I understand the idea behind it is so we don't ever hurt anyone else's feelings. But if you go back to thinking that it's actually impossible to hurt someone else's feelings, it really truly is. And this is coming from someone who was very badly bullied and teased in school all the way through, until I left high school my freshman year. You really truly cannot hurt somebody else's feelings unless they are already feeling hurt within. It is so important for you to speak your truth. The hardest one for me, and I still have a little bit of a hard time with this one, is when people want to get together and want to hang out, and I like my solitude. I like to hang out sometimes, don't get me wrong. I do have friends, I do like to see them every so often, but for the most part, I really like my solitude, and I like being in nature, and I like being with myself. And there are times when I have a really hard time when someone wants to get together and really wants to be around me, and I'm really not feeling it. And it's getting easier and easier for me to be able to say that, I will let you know when I want to get together, but right now I'm just kind of doing my own thing, just so they don't, have the silent treatment, so they don't think that I don't want to hang out with them, or maybe I don't. And that's another place where I can be really honest, and I'll let them know if I ever do want to hang out. But it's just so they have an idea. They're not guessing. They're not making assumptions that there's something, wrong with them, or that I don't like them. Because sometimes I don't like them, but a lot of times I do like them. I just really like my solitude and doing my own thing. So that was really hard for me, because I used to think, well, I'm going to upset people if I say that, and they'll never want to hang out with me again, and then I'll be all alone, or whatever it is, or I'll have hurt their feelings. But, I have to honor myself, and I suggest everyone honor themselves too, because you're never going to be able to prevent anyone from ever being upset. They will get upset if they are meant to get upset. If they're holding on to something that wants to be seen and released, it will be triggered for them. And that's actually a great gift to do for somebody, is to allow them to be upset. Because even though they may not see it that way, every time their insecurities, their fears, emotions they're not looking at, not wanting to look at, get triggered, they have the opportunity to look at it and actually feel through it. So, you know, not saying anything unless you have something kind to say may not be the best policy anymore. It may not be something that you want to adopt quite anymore, you know, unless you're flat out telling someone they're ugly, which is just your opinion, of course. That doesn't mean anything, and that doesn't have to be said. That's kind of a funny one. I always think when my kids bring that up. Well, what if I just don't like what they're wearing? Like, that's okay. You don't have to say that, and if they ask you, you can just tell them honestly it's not your style, but it's okay if they like it. All these little things we do as humans to try to avoid feeling hurt, and if we could just, you know, be really clear in our communication, bring it all up and out into the open. You know, when I was really sick with disease, I used to use my disease to get out of having to have clear communication, especially when I didn't want to go somewhere or do something with someone. I was able to use my disease as an excuse, and they completely understood that, and I was off the hook for ever having to hurt anyone's feelings, so to speak, or I was off the hook and able to cancel, you know, things that I was going to do. I, you know, used that disease a lot, and that was a big part of why I kept the identity of the disease, I later found out, was because it was my crutch. So I never really had to speak my truth because that disease was always that backup. I could use that as an excuse, and everyone understands that. When you're not feeling well, you're off the hook. No one makes assumptions, you know. No one really has to guess what's going on because everyone knows what it's like to feel sick and not well and not be able to do things. So I used that. Of course, when the disease healed, that crutch was like ripped like a rug ripped from under my feet. You know, I suddenly had no steady ground to stand on because I couldn't use that excuse anymore. I didn't have disease anymore. Now I really had to speak what I was feeling because I still didn't want to go do certain things or be with certain people. And now I really had to speak up and tell them, hey, this is actually how I feel about it. You know, or if I wanted to cancel an event, I could always say something came up instead of having to say, oh, I'm not feeling well today, or the kids, or my husband, or, you know, whatever excuses we make to get out of events. Now I can just say, you know, something came up and I'm not going to be coming in today, or I'm not going to be attending, you know, this time. And that's true, because always it's what the thing that comes up, truly, if you don't want to go do something or be with someone, is your intuition. So you're actually not even lying when you say that. It felt very uncomfortable for me at first until I realized, no, something did come up. My intuition came up, and it's clearly telling me, and I'm listening, it's clearly communicating to me that I don't want to go do this thing and I don't want to be around these people. And so I could clearly say that to them, you know, something came up, I'm gonna go do something else, or I'm not gonna be attending, whatever it is. It's all about clear communication. We don't have to make up excuses. We don't have to hold on to crutches like, you know, I can't because of my kids, or I can't because of my job, or I can't because of my illness. We don't even have to do that. You know, there's times when that may be true, but we don't have to do that if what we're really feeling is we just, you know, don't want to go do this other thing or hang out with this other person. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Clear, loving communication, so important. Listening to your own desires, your own intuition, how you truly feel about something and what you truly want, and then being able to speak up, you know, a little bit at a time, and getting more and more comfortable with people being upset or triggered by you when you're truly just being honest and honoring yourself. Have a good day, guys.